everybody, thanks for coming back. Happy to see you this is our second installment. Wow, so our second week of This Week in Regenerative Medicine. And again, this is just an opportunity for me to find 2 or 3 articles or pieces of news that I find interesting that highlight certain things that we're going to be discussing as we continue our journey together. So today I had 3 articles initially, and then after I thought about the third one, I think I need to give that article a little more depth in terms of how I'm interpreting it. I'll go ahead and tease slightly, but an organization called Pew looked at adverse reporting of stem cell and regenerative medicine related adverse reactions in patients throughout the United States. And they paint it in a really harrowing light. And the net result is the asking for greater degrees of governmental intervention and regulation by the FDA. I personally think that's the last thing we need, is more governmental oversight. And I think what the article is lacking is a little perspective. For example, if you go to the adverse reporting events website at the FDA, any of us can do it, and you just search if you happen to be taking a pharmaceutical, just search that drug and look at the enormous volume of adverse events that are reported. I just used Lipitor as just an example. Lipitor is one of these drugs that I view as being almost, I don't want to say ubiquitous, but it's very commonly utilized throughout the United States. And over that same time period where the Pew folks cite 300 and some odd adverse events reported with these stem cell products and their derivatives, over 62,000 adverse events of Lipitor have been reported, with many, many deaths, almost 3,400 deaths out of that group. So I want to give it a little more context. I want to do a deeper dive and give the folks at Pew their due. They took a great deal of time putting these numbers together, and there are some interesting findings. I just want to give it some more time. So check back with us or with me in the next week or two, and we'll be doing a deeper dive on that Pew data. And in fact, that may be the only article we work on that particular week. But I do have 2 others. One is kind of related, and one is a lecturer at the University of California, Irvine. And she's kind of a bioethicist focused on stem cells and regenerative medicine. And for the most part, I agree with everything she talks about. She talks about, the need for greater transparency. She talks about the concerns of a hyped up marketplace leading to decisions that otherwise should probably not have been made, whether that's by a practitioner or a consumer. Okay, so from that standpoint, the talk is very mundane, but it does highlight the importance of those 2 aspects of the application of regenerative medicine here in the United States. Consumers, definitely, if you're a consumer interested in learning more about regenerative medicine, one of the things we try and do here at stayregenerative.com is to educate you so that you are armed with the information, armed with the questions to go in and intelligently engage your physician or other medical provider, okay, so that you can get the optimal treatment for you as you discuss it with your doctor, and so that you can understand what that doctor is telling you. If you're a physician out there, equally important, really know who you are working with from a supplier standpoint. Yes, engage your manufacturer reps for sure. If you can, find a way to engage at a higher level within that organization. And what I tell my customers is always ask for the receipts. You should be able to know precisely, plus or minus, the concentrations of the various compounds that are in any particular injectable therapy that you might be considering for one of your patients. You should also thoroughly understand how their safety and screening measures are applied, and whether they do endotoxin testing or sterility testing, and how that transpires. So definitely educate yourself. And if you look at the history, fairly recent history, this is a young market, but where issues have occurred in the market is when various companies try to do end runs and try to cut costs by lessening the frequency of third-party validation of their batches or third-party assessment of safety and endotoxin levels of their particular formulation. So, this was a good lecture. I encourage you to read it. It's fairly informative. Again, I will post the link to that. The one thing I did object to, and this is something that the professor who was introducing the speaker mentioned, and she kind of gave a backhanded slap to those countries that are a little more liberal with providing access to patients of stem cell and regenerative medicine therapies. And to me, I think, here in the United States, are we getting so used to being regulated? I mean, I like the idea, if I'm a knowledgeable and well-informed consumer and I want to assume various risks, I certainly would like to have that opportunity, the whole my body, my choice type of argument. And you can certainly go to places throughout the globe, whether it's Central America or various places in Europe, and you have those decisions. So I disagree with that particular professor in that comment, thinking that that's all necessarily bad. I think that here in the United States, maybe a little less regulation and letting some therapies that can really benefit people, whether they're pharmaceutical or regenerative medicine, really get into the marketplace and help patients. And to the FDA's credit, what's happening in regenerative medicine and stem cell work now is the requirement for these organizations, these companies, to fund and develop investigational new drug applications. So that does create more opportunity for patients and physicians alike to offer these therapies and work together to solve some clinical problems. So definitely check that out. It's a good read. And again, you just kind of I brought that up just because it does highlight a couple of key issues that are on my mind from time to time. And the last paper I want to talk about, it's titled "Stable Nanovesicles for the Delivery of MicroRNA in Cancer Treatment." So why would this be of interest to me? I'm very interested. I kind of geek out on cell biology, and I'm really into exosomes right now. And exosomes are often thought as drug delivery vehicles, and exosomes often contain microRNAs, which we're going to learn a lot more about. I'm going to do a new video about them shortly. But what they do is they can upregulate and downregulate messenger RNA, which translates is the message for protein assembly, essentially. It's the code for putting those amino acids in order to create a functional protein. And what they're doing in this paper is they're using, I call them liposomes, but they're a little higher order than that. They mix various targeting molecules into these liposomes that actually encapsulate these microRNAs so that they can deliver these regulatory RNA pieces, these segments of RNA, to turn off or to interfere with protein synthesis for cancer cells. So I thought that was a very interesting way to do that. In graduate school, I worked with these liposomes for more traditional drug entities, but I thought it was unique in trying to find ways to stabilize these nucleic acid segments and deliver them to deranged cells to turn on or turn off certain genes and or interfere or upregulate with various aspects of protein synthesis of those cancer cells. So check that out. There's some cool images in there too that show you exactly what they're doing. So check that out. Again, the link will be below. Thanks again for listening. I know this was a little long today, a little longer than I wanted, but follow us on social media, primarily YouTube and Facebook. Go to our homepage, stayregenerative.com, sign up for our mailing list for more information, and stay in the know as it pertains to regenerative medicine. Stay regenerative, my friends. We'll talk soon.